what's happening, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and have I got a brand new video for you. Welcome to part 9 of What If Toga Was in 1A. I wanted to stop by and say hello, and sit back and relax because you are in for a treat. Let's get the story going, shall we? Toga and Bakugo stood on opposite sides of the arena. The two stared daggers into each other. Both had wanted to duke it out for a while now, and here was the best chance to do so. Both of their desires to win made the air thick with suspense. The moment the match began, Bakugo fired off explosions at Toga. The girl barely made it out of range in time. Much like in her fights before, Toga was heavily on the defensive. Bakugo refused to let her anywhere near him. He was well aware of her strategies in her fights thus far. "You're not scared, are you?" she called out over the explosions. "The hell I am!" Bakugo roared back. "Then why not let me up close? Is it because you know I could take you out in one hit?" Toga practically sang out, her lips perched out to further poke fun. She needed him closer. The best way she could think of was to make him really mad so he would come after her. He seemed to act more reckless when he was angry, even though there were much better plans of action. She continued to mock him as she pranced around to dodge his explosions. Bakugo grew more frustrated with her movements. The final straw was when the smoke parted just enough to see her stick out her tongue and flip him off with both hands. Bakugo leapt forward and fired off explosions to rocket himself faster. "Die!" Bakugo roared. Toga jumped before he could land. She swung her legs and arms around him and put Bakugo into a full bear hug. She grinned widely and leaned in to whisper into his ear, "Make me." The boy finally landed. He tried to break out of her hold, only to be met with a headbutt from Toga. He could feel the blood trickle from his nose when she landed the blow. The pain caused him to stagger back with a mild wince and shout of pain. She knew a direct headbutt would daze them both, but the nose was a softer part of the face to aim for. She had no time to strike again, though. The moment he saw her rearing her head back to smash into him again, he let out another scream for her to get off. Bakugo then proceeded to use his explosions to rocket them into the air. Toga looked up to meet his glaring eyes with her own devious ones. Her focus shifted to the red that trickled down his face from his nose. The feeling she felt when Midoriya was hurt came back. It wasn't nearly as bad this time, though. The feeling did grow the longer she saw the blood. The desire to taste it followed next. It was hard to pinpoint why she still was in this current mental state, but Bakugo suddenly looked cute. She pushed the feeling away so she could focus. They were falling, and Toga's back was aimed right towards the ground. He was going to crash into the ground to take her down. He even used his blast to speed up the fall. She needed to think of something fast. Toga gripped his arms tighter with her own. She proceeded to let go of his waist with her legs. She then swung them back up again to wrap around his arms. Bakugo cursed as she moved her arms away from him. She then put her palms on his shoulders and pushed forward. At the same time, she swung her legs back to redirect his body. The direction his hands were facing shifted in the process. The action caused the two to spin around wildly. Bakugo quickly stopped his explosions, which slowed their spinning. Much to Bakugo's displeasure, the damage had already been done. The two kept spinning even without the explosions. The blood from his face finally flicked off from the wild rushing wind. It splattered onto Toga's face near her mouth. Unable to stop the desire any longer, she trailed her tongue along the blood to taste it. Her eyes grew wide and slowly rolled back. She grew flustered with a wide smile. She couldn't begin to even describe how it tasted, nor how it made her feel. She couldn't enjoy it for long before they crashed. Clouds of dust filled the air around them just as quickly as the silence from the audience. Teachers rushed over to get the two into medical care if needed due to how intense the fall had been. The dust parted just enough for Toga to see Bakugo beside her. Both were barely conscious. She could tell he was in pain, but for some reason, she could barely focus on her own despite her broken arm and leg that was still under Bakugo from the crash. Bakugo was cut up from the rubble all over his body. His more serious injuries had blood coming from them. She slowly reached out a shaky hand to his face. She caressed his cheek. Her thumb gently trailed along the blood on it to smear it further. Her breathing grew shaky. The corners of her vision grew darker. The way Bakugo looked at her with a pained expression told her he likely thought she would pass out at any moment, so he didn't need to exert himself any further. His brow twitched upon seeing her slowly shifting closer towards him. "You're so cute right now," she whispered as she licked his cheek. Bakugo's eyes grew wide at the notion. He used all his power to push her off and rolled away from her with a groan. "Man, you really are a freak," he grumbled out. Lost in her own world, Toga looked at him as he got up to his feet. Toga was less focused on winning the battle at this point. She needed to taste more of his blood. She needed to make him bleed more. As Bakugo got up, Toga grabbed his shoulder to help her onto her feet. He moved to shove her off, but froze upon seeing his own face looking back at him, his own arm slowly curled around his neck. "Would you prefer if I looked like you instead?" Toga asked the boy, almost sounding flirtatious. The dust settled slowly, just in time for the crowd to see Toga in her new form, an unharmed Bakugo. She placed her broken leg to the ground, still unable to register the pain. The onlookers were easily able to tell something was wrong with it, with how she began to walk forward. Bakugo stumbled, nearly falling. He turned to face her and tried to stop her from walking. His own pain was too much to focus on, which caused him to fall as he tried to force her away. Bakugo shouted at her to get off him or he'd kill her. He even placed his palm to the side of her head. The teachers looked on towards the audience, who seemed just as uncertain as they were if Bakugo would actually attack her again after the fall moments ago. Bakugo let off small explosions to scare her away, only to receive a wild smile in return. Toga hopped up towards him to lick his face once more. In reaction, Bakugo jerked back just enough to cause the two to once again fall. This time off the battlefield, Bakugo cursed under his breath, but managed to wrap both arms around her midsection. With a small blast, he spun them just in time to make her back aim towards the ground. He pulled his arms back and away as they flopped onto the ground. Toga finally wheezed, focusing a bit more as his weight knocked the air right out of her. She shifted back into her normal state. Both students looked up to the displays around the building to see a frame-by-frame replay. Toga's back hit the ground a single frame before one of Bakugo's knees had made him the victor. The cameras didn't linger on them for long, though, due to the level of damage Toga had sustained. Unlike Toga, the audience wouldn't have enjoyed seeing another long shot of another student's intense injuries. Toga's eyes slowly trailed back to Bakugo again, who looked almost neutral towards her. He was trying to figure out exactly what had just happened with her. He didn't like her, but he knew what she had just done was very unlike her. Toga finally registered the position they were in as the teachers rushed over. "I didn't expect you to be a cuddler." Bakugo blushed mildly and was quick to use the last of his strength to roll off her. He flopped to the ground next to her right as the teachers got there. The teachers carefully but quickly moved them off to get medical attention. With the sound of their footsteps and the sight of the ceiling as it passed by, Toga's momentary high finally faded. The pain began to finally set in, alongside the realization she had lost. Toga's grin slowly faded into a more somber look. She lost in her third round. If she hadn't lost herself like she had moments ago, she possibly could have still won somehow. "Hey," Bakugo's voice cut in through her thoughts of disappointment. "Quit pouting. You look stupid. You almost won, remember? Besides, when you're up against someone like me, you had no chance of winning, so count yourself lucky you got as far as you did, freak." Toga blinked. She allowed her gaze to fall to Bakugo as they arrived. His face was almost soft, his tone nearly supportive. She didn't know why, but he wanted to cheer her up. Maybe they were more like friends than she had first thought. She gave him a small smile the best she could. Be it the blood or his support, she felt herself warming up a bit more to him. "Good. Now quit looking at me, freak," Bakugo said flatly, "and don't call me cute again." Toga started to giggle but stopped with a wince. She looked away to the ceiling again, smiling softly. No promises. Toga allowed herself to finally pass out and give Bakugo a moment of peace. Much later, she heard Bakugo as he yelled at the teachers. He told them off that he was fine enough to fight. Toga peeked over with her drowsy eyes to see the energetic Bakugo just in time to see him rush out to fight in his battle. He seemed to be fixed up, with all the blood cleaned off his body. Her attention shifted upon Uraraka coming into her line of sight. Uraraka beamed a smile down to her. "You're awake!" Uraraka exclaimed. "5 more minutes, Mom," Toga joked while she looked down to her body. Parts were still wrapped up, but all mostly healed. She had some scarring on her leg and bicep, where the breaks on her limbs had been the worst. Besides this and some soreness, she was all healed up. Recovery Girl informed her of some scarring on her back, before she lectured Toga for her recklessness. The way they fell had caused Toga more damage than Bakugo due to the two landing in a way where Toga had more of a direct crash. Both she and Bakugo had not suffered any lasting damage, but if they had landed in any other way, both of them could have been severely hurt. Around this time, Vlad King came in to speak with Toga about how she did well, but not to push herself so hard next time. The two exchanged hugs just before they were all shooed quickly out of the room by Recovery Girl, who had had enough of their chatting. Toga apologized and made her way out with the others. Upon entering the room with the other students, Toga was gifted with countless annoyed eyes. They had of course been worried for her, but the annoyance of Toga's obnoxious ringtone was too much to really stop the looks. Toga blushed and laughed out an apology. She had hidden away her phone so no one would mess with it while she was in her battle. The others must not have been able to find it to silence her phone. She rushed to get her phone and left the room to talk. She made her way to get a spare set of gym clothes to change into. Her mother had apparently been calling since she was taken off the broadcast to get medical attention. Toga reassured her mother that she was fine. Toga made sure not to talk about the scars, the near-lasting damage, nor the concerning situation she had earlier for now. Her mother was concerned enough as it was. She wouldn't hide it from her forever, just until her mother had calmed down, in maybe a week or two. Toga ended the call by the time she reached her room to change her clothes. She giggled at Bakugo, who freaked out at Todoroki for not giving it his all. The boy promptly was dragged off by the teachers. Normally, she'd be irritated by Bakugo's bratty behavior, though after their most recent interactions, she just found it surprisingly humorous. By the time she returned in a new outfit, the students were already filing out. She followed suit and made her way to the designated locations. Soon enough, they were put on the stands. Todoroki stood at second with a blank expression. Ida stood proud on the third place stand with Toga next to him, who held up a peace sign close to her face, paired with a brightly lit smile. Meanwhile, Bakugo appeared to be foaming at the mouth while he was chained up in the first place spot. Afterwards, Toga raced off to go see Uraraka and Midoriya to celebrate. She raised a brow when Midoriya excused himself to check on Ida, who had just finished a call on his phone. Something didn't seem quite right. She didn't know Ida that well, so she left Midoriya to check on him, who was much closer to Ida. Toga instead left with Uraraka to go get some ramen to celebrate. Yaoyorozu, Mina, and Jiro chose to join in the moment Uraraka offered the idea of karaoke after ramen. Toga didn't really know the other girls well, but was more than happy to have them join in. They seemed friendly enough, and Toga hadn't had a girls' night out before. The idea had easily gotten her excited. She even called her mother on the way to tell her she'd be home late, and as to why. Her mother pleaded with her not to push herself too much, though she was proud that her daughter had come such a long way with her socializing. The break from the stress of the world was very relieving. By the time Toga had gotten home, her parents were already in bed. She did well to stay quiet as she got ready for bed herself. Her last thoughts before she fell asleep were of that night, the friends she made, and her third-place medal. Things weren't exactly how she wanted them, but they were still amazing. In the morning before she left for school, her father stopped her. The two stared at each other for a long time before he spoke up. "Third place isn't so bad," he forced out. "Not the best, but not bad." Much like third place, his reply wasn't the best, but it wasn't bad. It still filled Toga with joy nonetheless. Her father's body language screamed "do not touch," so she avoided the hug she wanted. She instead bowed to her father. "I'll do even better next time," she happily promised. Toga waved to him and her smiling mother as she rushed out the house. She didn't want to be late for class after all. She finally made headway with her father. The excitement totally washed out the fact of what happened the day before, that she still had to tell her mother about. Something still lingered inside her ever since those old feelings had resurfaced. They laid in wait, under the waters for the right time to resurface. They were quiet enough, and Toga focused enough on other things for her to notice their immediate presence at the moment. After all, she was walking on top of the world, the entire galaxy it felt like. As usual, Mr. Aizawa arrived and broke up the daily pre-class hangouts. He announced the news about the internships from Pro Heroes, as well as how they had to pick out hero names before anything else. Midnight came in right after this news to take over the class for the time being. Things went relatively normal as it did in the original series. The exception was Toga, who whispered to Bakugo teasingly about his name. Then she promptly suggested that he possibly needed at least 5 more deaths and 2 more murders for the name to be greenlit. Bakugo only responded with a few grumbles. It was an odd reaction. Then again, after their battle, he had understandably acted much more different around Toga. Toga didn't quite like how Midoriya chose the nickname meant to make fun of him to use as his hero name. She supposed turning it into a hero name did take away some of its power to insult him, but that still bothered her. Soon, it was Toga's turn. She made her way to the front of the class with her card. She took a deep breath, then turned her card to reveal her name. Due to her need to be agile, fast, and stealthy, along with her capability to turn into others with her powers, she figured this would be the best name for her. Copycat, she announced with a bright smile. Upon the approval, she smiled pridefully and returned to her seat. When the names were finished, Mr. Aizawa passed out the lists of heroes each student had requests from. He then instructed them to pick out the heroes they wished to do an internship with. Toga already knew she wanted to go with Vlad King, so she mostly talked to the rest of the class. She was impressed with her own long list though. She had never expected to have so many options. Then again, she did get 3rd place, which had gotten plenty of eyes on her. Not as many as Todoroki or Bakugo, but many more than most of the others. At the end of class, she made her way up to Mr. Aizawa. "I've decided to go with Vlad King," she announced happily. "No," Aizawa replied flatly. "When do I—" She froze as the no finally processed. "Wait, no?" "That's right. You already train with him nearly every day, Toga. You won't learn anything groundbreaking if you keep searching in the same place every time. Pick someone else, then come back to me." Toga frowned and begrudgingly left. She had been excited to follow Vlad officially on the streets. She had to admit, though, that Mr. Aizawa had a point. She practically talked to her father figure daily at this point. As much as she wanted to study under him, she did have to try to widen her horizons even more, even if it was just a little. She thought about it through the rest of the day. She figured she should look for someone who could help her make her quirk more combative-friendly, or at least someone that could widen her range of combative ability. She looked down the list of names she had clutched closely to her chest. Every name on that list had seen her quirk in action. They all saw her fit to train under them. She wondered if this was due to them understanding her skill to work around it, or didn't know about the blood aspect of her quirk. For any of them to truly help her with her quirk, she'd need someone who totally understood how her quirk actually worked, and its limitations. One hero who knew all this already, and had his own limited quirk came to mind. "I got it!" Toga exclaimed in realization. He wasn't on the list, but he was still perfect in her mind to go train under. Before she went home that day, she found Mr. Aizawa once again. She smiled confidently up to him. He already looked tired of the conversation despite the fact she hadn't even spoken yet. "I have decided I want you to be my internship hero person," she declared. "No," he replied just as flatly as before. "Oh, come on! I know you're not on the list, but you could show me how to really fight more efficiently than what I can do. That, and you also know how to use a quirk that isn't directly combative in a combative way. That's exactly what I need to learn more about." Mr. Aizawa sighed tiredly. He could tell she wouldn't be dissuaded from this pick as easily as she had before. After a long and quiet staring match between the two, he finally spoke. "You realize if you train with me, you won't be getting any field training, right? Just the usual off-the-field stuff you normally do in class," he explained. "Yep, but this time it'll be one-on-one," she stated with confidence. "More like 1-on-2, he muttered tiredly to Toga, who was very confused about this. "Fine, be here tomorrow at 5 a.m. and don't be late. Have your costume with you." Toga's face lit up quickly when he agreed. He waved her off upon seeing her face. He lacked the energy required to watch the girl get all hyper again. Toga gave him her best salute. "Aye aye, Captain," she exclaimed with a giggle. "And none of that either." Toga pouted at how much of a stick in the mud Aizawa was being, but she shoved it off for now. He had given in to her request. That night, she ate her food quickly, nearly choking on half of it. After, she rushed excitedly to bed. Despite getting up on time with plenty of sleep, the young girl still woke up pretty groggy due to how early she had to wake up in order to make it to her lesson with Mr. Aizawa. She changed into her costume in the girls' locker room and made her way to the classroom with all the pep in her step. "I'm ready to go!" Toga blinked at the sight before her. Shinzo stood there with wraps around his neck that looked like Mr. Aizawa's. So this is what he meant when he said, 1 on 2. And that's our video for today, so thank you all for watching and indulging yourselves in our story thus far. I hope you have enjoyed it. Now, there's some housekeeping I need to go over before the video ends. First, we have a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts and lore of a wide variety of anime, which is sure to expand your weeb knowledge of all kinds, guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We the Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. So go check that out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. And finally, if you are interested in what we do here with the Celestials, I want to extend an invitation to join our crew. We only have one caveat: you must be 16 years or older to join. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be, whether you're a fan or you want to join our band of misfits. And so that's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and I do hope you have a great day. And before I go, I do hope you are taking care of yourselves mentally and physically, that you are eating well, that you are doing well. Hopefully you're also taking breaks and not overworking yourselves. Take time to enjoy the small things, you know? The small little moments of happiness and joy and kindness in your life, because those always go a long way. Mustache out.